This presentation is about sculpture, which is three-dimensional artwork. The three dimensions are height, width, and depth. Space is the most important element of sculpture because we create it and experience it in real-world space. We walk around it, we see it from different viewpoints. The artwork changes as our position in space changes. What are the different ways we can experience space through making and looking at art? Think about the difference between the illusion of space in two-dimensional art, like on paper or a painting, and real space. This video is going to explore the element of art, space.
Space is always part of an artwork, sometimes in multiple ways. No art form demonstrates this more than site-specific work. Site-specific art is designed exclusively for one particular space. For this type of art, it's impossible to isolate the work from its surrounding environment. So for many artists then, space and how to transform it is the artwork. Space is one of the 7 elements of art, along with line, shape, form, texture, value, and color. Space is the area in which an artwork is organized. It encompasses the area within a work of art and can also include the area immediately outside of and around a work of art. In paintings, drawings, and other two-dimensional work, the space of an artwork is usually contained within the borders of the paper or canvas it's made on. The main objects in a work of art take up positive space. The area around them then is called negative space. Sometimes artists intentionally try to blur the boundaries between positive and negative space. In sculpture and other three-dimensional arts, positive space is the area the objects actually occupy, and negative space is all the other areas between and around the objects. Many two-dimensional works create the illusion of three-dimensional space by using some very specific techniques. Notice how painter Kehinde Wiley overlaps some of the background pattern onto the front of people in these portraits. This overlapping gives a sense of three-dimensional space. Landscape painter Wang Hui placed objects in different parts of the canvas to imply three-dimensional space. Notice how figures towards the top of the paintings seem to be moving further back in space, even though they are roughly the same size. Some artists do use relative size to give their work the illusion of real space. The smaller human figures in these paintings by Ben Shahn seem to be more distant and further away from the larger ones. Roy de Carava often contrasted sharply focused figures with blurry soft backgrounds in his photographs. Such a contrast in detail gives the sense of lush, real depth. Varying hues and values will also give two-dimensional works the illusion of real space. See how painter Georgia O'Keeffe uses a variety of red values and imbues her work with a feeling of true depth? Painter Alex Roulette uses classic single and two-point perspective in his work to create the impression of deep, expansive space. Notice too how objects get smaller in order to seem more distant from each other. Some other ways to describe how artists use space are dense, open, cluttered, symmetrical, shallow, flat. How would you describe the way artists approach space in these works? What qualities do you see? How artists use space is one way they are able to create a unique style and reinforce the messages they hope to communicate. The next next time you're looking at a painting, photograph, or sculpture, try to notice how the artist is using space in their work. And when you're making your own artwork, try to develop an approach to space that resonates with other ideas you're trying to communicate. That way, your messages will surely travel far and wide.
I really love the variety of artworks and types of art that was shown in that video, from paintings and photographs to sculpture. Today we're going to look at site-specific work, which was mentioned in the video. A site is a place where something is installed specifically for that place. We often call this public artwork, and you can find it in parks, city plazas, university campuses, famous landmarks. It's often very big, so we often call this large-scale installation art. We are going to explore the work of 6 contemporary artists who create large-scale, site-specific public artworks and installations. The first artist is one of my favorite artists, is named Anish Kapoor. He is a British Indian artist who specializes in large-scale sculptures and installations. He uses organic forms and simple materials, often very shiny, reflective surfaces, to play with reflections and also the idea of positive and negative space. On the left, you see a work called Cloudgate, which is in downtown Chicago. It's also known as the bean for its bean-like shape. And you can see in the reflection that the curved surface of this bean distorts the entire area around it. On the right, you see an installation called Sky Mirror, and I actually got to see this. So this is a large park in London, England, where large mirrors were placed on the grass to reflect the sky. And so it looked like you had holes into the sky as you walked through the park. This is another piece by Kapoor called Leviathan, which he created in 2011 in Paris. I also got to see this piece, and it really is one of the most memorable art experiences I ever had. You might recognize this from the video we just watched. And then I'm going to play this short video, which gives you like a little tour so you can experience just how big this is. This was installed in a building called the Grand Palais, which, as you can see from the top, has a huge iron and glass roof.
A project like this is all about taking the risk. And the risk is that it won't work, that we've got a technical problem or whatever. We won't know until we actually do it. But in a way, that's the point of my work as an artist. It is experimental. There's no certainty about it. There is the sense that one is daring to go to a place and try something out with the risk that it'll fail. But that is what the creative process is about. So I take it on as it's given. There's no choice, it seems.
Leviathan, 2011.
So what you were hearing was the artist Anish Kapoor describe his artwork. The name Leviathan comes from the name of a deep sea monster that is found in ancient stories. So, as you saw in the video, when you went to visit this installation, you not only walked around this huge monster like figure, you also were able to walk inside of it as if you were walking into the belly of a huge monster. The next artist we will look at is Olafur Eliasson, and he is a Danish Icelandic artist who creates site specific installations that often use natural elements like water, mist, earth. His works are often about the environment and nature and our human relationship to them. On the right, you see a piece called Infinite Staircase. And as you can see, he's created a staircase that's like in a never-ending loop. So as soon as you've reached the top, you immediately begin going down it again. And that form is called a helix. So you're just going around and around like a never-ending infinite staircase. On the right, you see a piece called Waterfall, which was a living waterfall he created in the Palace of Versailles outside of Paris in France. The same artist had created a waterfall under the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City a few years before. I'm not going to play the entire video because it's a little long, so you can go back and watch it, but I will play the first part just so we can see it together. So here, this first waterfall, is on Staten Island, which is an island near New York City. So he made several waterfalls around the New York area. And there's the waterfall under the Brooklyn Bridge. So again, you can go back and watch this entire video, but Eliasson here is creating natural landscapes like a waterfall in human-made city environments. So what do you think he's talking about here, about the relationship between nature and cities and humans? The next piece is called Forever Bicycles, and this was a piece created in 2014 in Austin, Texas by a Chinese artist named Ai Weiwei. And this is no longer up, but this was an artwork made of over 1,200 bicycles. And this type of bicycle was made by the Forever Bicycle Company in China, and it reminded the artist of his childhood, but also the important role of bikes in Chinese society. However, he's also making a reference to how by stacking all of those bicycles coming out towards us, it looks like the bicycles are going back into space without end, or just a forever almost tunnel of bicycles. These are some works by a Swedish-American artist named Klaus Oldenburg. And he is known for making huge replicas of everyday objects in public spaces. He's over 91 years old. He's been making art for over 60 years. So here you see a clothespin, which is in front of City Hall in Philadelphia. On the bottom right, you see like a little hand broom and a dustbin. You can see that in Denver. The ice cream cone is in Germany somewhere. I think that's hilarious. Oldenburg also made a lot of work with his wife, who's from Holland. Her name is Koos van Bruggen. And they collaborated together for many decades, continuing in that same idea of taking an everyday object and blowing it up to just a huge, huge scale. Here you see it looks like a garden hose that they've put in a public park and actually ended it at the little pond. The spoon with the cherry on top can be seen in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the saw is in Tokyo. I think this type of work gives a lot of fuel for your imagination to think about scale and also think about the subject of artwork. Do you need to start with a huge idea to make an art, or can you take just an everyday object, maybe something you really like, and make it interesting by changing how big it is or putting it in a different context than you usually see it? The last piece we're going to look at is called Digital Orca. It was made in 2009 and it is found in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. The artist who made this is named Douglas Coupland, and the idea behind it was that it would allow viewers to travel between the past and the future. So this part of Canada is known for, it's known as a place where you can see a lot of whales. So the history of this city is tied to the natural area around it. But then he's put like a 3D pixelized version of a killer whale. A pixel is the smallest point, like a tiny little square in the picture on your screen. So that can be your computer screen, smartphone screen, digital camera, digital TV. They're usually so tiny that we don't see them with just our eye. And because they're so small, when we're looking, we don't see them anymore. And so all the images look like they normally would. You see curves and you see colors blended together. So when you pixelize something, you make the pixels so big, it's like you're enlarging them, that everything ends up looking like it's made out of big squares instead of tiny ones. So I know that many of you are probably thinking Minecraft. So what do you think about changing this natural animal form into something that looks like it's out of a computer? What do you think? Can you write a sentence telling me what you think of these large-scale artworks? What was your favorite? Why? Write down your answers and send to me. If you feel really inspired, imagine you are commissioned. To be commissioned is when an artist receives an order and money to create artwork. So imagine you were commissioned to create a large-scale sculpture or installation or site-specific artwork. What would it be? Where would it go? What materials would you use? You can make a sketch and send me a photo of it, or you could just write a description with your main ideas and where you might put that. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I hope it gave you a better idea of how, as an artist, you can use space in your own artwork.